G'day, frothers. You know those around us who operate at high energy levels? From friends, family, through to the famous. Those who emanate enthusiasm. They inspire you to be better. Their words give you a rush. This rush fires off dopamine right in the middle of your brain's reward centre. My theory is that at times, just before we need to hit our straps, to tap into peak performance in our flow state, we find these people and harness their energy. I call this energy froth. I call these people frothers. This is a journey to find the frothers, to understand how they inspire themselves and others to be their best. And I'll pass it on to you on this podcast, dare I say Frothcast, so you can fly into your next challenge, beaming, pumped, and full of energy. This is a coffee shop with a Red Bull chaser. This is Finding the Frothers. G'day, Frothers. When I was listening back to this episode, I was kind of feeling like I was a bit cheated. I was like, where has Eugene Kuhn been? I'd lost a bit of influence and positive nourishment that I was getting from his wisdom online, particularly on Facebook. So I did a bit of investigating and found a little frother hack for you guys. If you go to someone's brand page, you can go to the following button, click on it, and there's a drop down to change the settings. And that works for groups as well. So you can switch it to see first. So I'm going to get Eugene Kuhn goodness for however long I need it for. And I think I'm going to apply that to the frothers that maybe I've lost a bit of touch with, who have those kind of brand pages or even just brands and stuff as well. But anyway, Eugene Kuhn, he's one of those people who you feel like he's lived some lives. Like if I can get to, he's got a few years on me, but if I can get to his age and have the stories and the people and the experiences that he's had, I will be absolutely stoked. He's literally lived on his own terms, living by honesty, integrity, and transparency, which are kind of his three core principles, and something that I now revert back to on the reg if I need a reality check. He's a US Army veteran, and he takes us to some of the pivotal moments on the battlefield, which I'm super grateful for. He's advised some of the biggest names on the planet, and he's jammed out with worldly figures like Mick Jagger and Bill Clinton. Most importantly, he's an authentic character who's lived a frothy life full of frothers that have made him the supreme human that he is today. He spends his days living a life enterprise, aka he's the CEO of his own life. It makes total sense when he explains it in the podcast, and it's what has people around the world from all walks of life utterly captivated about how he lives it. You can feel his energy and sincerity in his voice. He's no bullshit, and he'll tell you straight to your face. This episode is like a giant bear hug from a giant man with an even gianter heart. And I realise that gianter isn't a word, but it's my fucking podcast, so whatever. But back to the point, I give you Eugene Kuhn. G'day, Kuhn, and welcome to Finding the Frothers podcast, mate.
Finding the Frothers. I love it. I love it.
So we met in Croatia on an island full of entrepreneurs. I'd say 130 frothers were on the island. I was there cutting about in my party shirt and sort of stubbies and party hat, hair out, a bit scruffy, designer stubble. I call my beard, but it's probably not. You're a very well-dressed, clean-cut, 6'4", 125 kilo, ex-military Adonis, I'd say. We'd say you have a rig of death, mate. Like, very muscly dude. And you even commented, you said, oh, we're a little bit of the odd couple when we hung out. So, yeah, I just wanted to paint that picture for the guys. And I'm super stoked to have you on the podcast to share your wisdom and tell us about how you get into that sort of peak energy space and really dominate in everything that you do. I just want to begin by talking a little bit about you being an advisor to some celebrities and some big politicians. A few of those, Andrea Bocelli, massive opera singer, Mick Jagger, obviously everyone knows them. But I want to talk about one of the biggest frothers Australia has ever seen. Sandy from Greece, Olivia Newton-John.
Yeah.
She's probably one of the biggest, the most famous Australian frothers that have ever existed. And I'd love for you to tell us a little bit about that and also touch on your HIT methodology and that's how you connect with frothers.
Right. Well, it's funny, back I think 2000, 12 or 13, Olivia Newton-John was the 7th most recognized name in the world.
Wow.
So, I mean, she is a massive frother, like if not the queen frother, so, well, I met her through doing a favor for a friend, and he invited me down to Jupiter, Florida, to, look at a business that she and her husband wanted to bring to Europe. And I went down to the beach in West Palm Beach and met her and her husband at the pool, which was sort of strange. I was in my swimming trunks. I didn't expect them to show up, and they did. So it was good because we were both, sort of demantled from our protective armor, if you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. Sitting there, so sort of like in Croatia, sitting there sort of topless. Well, me, not her, topless, meeting at the pool with her husband, John. And we struck a deal, and I ended up working with them to launch their company in 6 countries in Europe. And she came over, and I had her in Budapest, I think 3 times, and we had her in Austria and Poland and Germany, Belgium, UK, I forget where else, somewhere, Czech Republic. And she came with us and was always on the stage, so we organized all that, and we basically built the business for them over here in Europe, my buddy and I. So that was a great time. So every time I go to Vegas, see her show. She moved from Jupiter, Florida to Vegas about 4 years ago, so she's now in Vegas, and I sort of hang out with her when she goes. Yeah, she's a amazing person, resilient, takes no shit at all. Sound and lighting has to be perfect, even for just walking on stage and saying hello. She's a perfectionist, which goes to show why she's gone so far and done so many things.
Amazing, mate. And I like how you say, it started out as a business connection, but now it's turned into when you go to Vegas, you hang out. And I feel like that vibe from Croatia and the vibe I get with you as well is you definitely, the business is a big part of your life, but you also, when you connect with someone over business, you really want to make sure that their integrity lines up with you and there's total alignment, because otherwise it doesn't work.
Well, that's the whole point that people forget about it. Business is a small aspect of what I call relational capital. So I always say I'm investing in relational capital. So when you invest in anything, you're looking for interest, you're looking for return, but without expectation, because sometimes you can't tell. Sometimes you lose in the market, sometimes you win in the market, right? So this is how I go about my life, is that everyone I meet in my life enterprise is a stakeholder. So you're a stakeholder in my life enterprise. You have an effect on me. Something that you do, we talk about, will change something that I otherwise wouldn't have done, right? So I treat this with respect and the way that I invest in everyone that I meet. And investing means elevating, helping, giving free advice, adding value where I can without expectation. And that's the whole trick about HIT, if we want to slide into that real quick. Honesty, integrity, and transparency is the core values that I live by. What this does, we can explain it later, but what this does is it allows you to live without expectation. And people are like, well, that's nice. Well, no, it's amazing. Because if I don't have, it is, because people don't think about, well, Steve, that's nice, no expectation, but you got to have jobs and whatever. No, you either have no expectation or you verbalize it. And I'll just give you a few examples. When you get up in the morning and your wife is downstairs, you feel guilty because you're still in bed maybe. What's she expecting of me? Should I go down? Or you come home with flowers. Is she expecting something from you now? She thinks that you expect something from her. All this falls away, all of it. What's your boss think? What's your mom think? What's your dad think? What do they expect of you? What are you supposed to do? How are you supposed to do it? It all falls away. Why? Because you're operating from honesty and transparency. The byproduct of honesty and transparency with yourself is integrity. That integrity makes you authentic. That authenticity allows you to dictate your market value because you're not dependent on anyone at all. And that's so key that people understand that when you're free of expectations, you literally have like a third of your day more to think. Like your brain just suddenly is empty. And you're like, wow, nothing to think about anymore. I guess I can be creative now. You're not reacting anymore. You're acting. It's incredible.
It's amazing, mate. Yeah. I follow you online and watch a lot of your videos when you describe it more in depth, and I'm always learning. You mentioned the routine. So like, you're up in bed. I know you're not up in bed while your wife is downstairs. You have something called Magic Mornings, but I don't want to divert you down there if that's not where you want to go. But what is the one routine that you do every day that has you frothing and performing at your best?
Well, I like to say it's the Magic Mornings. It's where I get up. I get up before everyone else, and I journal, meditate, go through my affirmations and my intentions. Intentions are almost more important than affirmations. Affirmations are sort of like the support for the intentions. The intentions are connected to certainty, and certainty is connected to it will happen, period. Or it is happening, sorry. The will has to fall away. It's happening now. Everything's in the now. Even tomorrow, when you get there, it's now. Yesterday when you were there, it was now. So, when I talk about affirmations, I talk about, visions and things. It's always right now. So even when I do, my vision boards and I write a check to myself, it's dated now, so it's always now. And that's my strongest moment of the day spiritually. But really, honestly, where I get the most power is when I go to the gym. So I go to the gym every day as well. And that's where it's like I get launched in the magic morning, greet my family, take them to school, blah, 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 blah. And then I go to the gym with my wife usually. And that's when the day explodes. Yeah.
Wow. Awesome, mate.
Yeah.
I think everyone has their own thing that makes their day explode. For me, it's obviously having conversations with people like yourself.
Right.
But yeah, that's super powerful. And I think probably because your wife's there as well, it probably compounds that as well. It's amazing.
It does.
Speaking of important people, and you've heard about my sort of frothing process, and one of the frothers is your anchor frothers, which are people that you have access to whenever you want, and are really sort of cornerstone people in your life. Did you want to give a shout out to some of your anchor frothers?
Yeah, I'm Sven von Storch, Beatrix von Storch, my brother Scott Kuhn. There's so many out there, but when it comes to like I have an inner froth and I have an outer froth.
Okay, mate, so I love it. Expand it.
my inner froth is I have a theory, and you know how when you speak to some people, you can really go deep. Like for some reason, there's a connection there, and I call it that inner sort of dialogue where I allow you into my soul and you allow me into your soul, and the deeper we allow each other, it's like a metronome going left and right. As far as it goes to the left, as far as it goes to the right. The same thing with us is we allow each other into our souls, and that discussion, that frothing, if you will, is something that you can't duplicate unless it's real and it's authentic. And I have a friend in Berlin who's actually from Chile. He's a German Chilean, who is the only person on the planet that goes deeper than anyone else I've ever met. So when we sit, we literally for 13 years now, since WhatsApp's been out, we text probably 20 times a day, every day, like forever. And this guy's a political head of some party, and it's incredible. So this is one of my massive sources for spirituality. Believe it or not, he's a politician, but he's super spiritual. And then I have, of course, my twin brother Scott, who we've been connected since birth, and anything goes with him. We can talk about whatever we want. Just so many people out there. I could go on and on. So. Oh man,
yeah. I mean, you can have as many anchor frothers as you want, and the more the better, I guess. So I'll hook over into music, because music's a huge part of my life and most people really. Is there any music that you use, maybe it's in the gym or at any other point during your day, which really gets you fired up?
Yeah, well, in the gym, I actually listen to audiobooks. I usually listen to things like the Inside Out Revolution or Dr. Joseph Murphy, things like that. Or for some people are boring, but what it does is it puts me in a trance. Because when I'm training, I don't think about the training. I think about contractions and I think about breathing and stuff. And this slow, sort of monotone dialogue sort of keeps me focused that way. So that's why I listen to that. But my absolute favorite band is U2. There's no U2 song that I don't love. When I really want to get pumped up, It's a Beautiful Day. Obviously, that's one of the ones. If I'm melancholy, I pull out Gordon Lightfoot, who's a Canadian sort of folk singer, and he sings things like Sundown or The Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald. That's sort of melancholy. The Stones is always a good fallback. When I worked for Mick Jagger, I got to stand with him on stage while he sang my favorite songs. And I'll never forget it, because I'm standing there on stage going, this is fucking incredible, man. Like, I'm living history. Like, this is Mick Jagger and the Stones singing my favorite songs 2 feet from me on stage. It's like, it blew me away. So yeah, the Stones have a special place in my heart.
Jagger was serenading you, mate. That's exactly what was happening.
Yeah. Maybe not directly, but yeah, it was.
That's awesome. That's classic. Yeah. The next one is about the boundary frothers, which are just outside those anchor frothers. And I think this will be really interesting because your network is very powerful. So who would you say is someone who's just outside? No one's beyond your reach. You say that you can make a phone call to anyone in the world if you need to. But who is someone just outside your boundary at the moment that you'd love to connect with, and why?
I'm looking right now at widening my range. So this is I have this theory because I invest in relational capital my entire life that I'm at a level where all humans are connected in a way. So when I walk up to somebody, I don't feel intimidated or who's like I walk up to George Bush and say, "Hey, George Bush, how you doing?" I don't say President Bush, and I don't say George, or Mr. Bush. I say George Bush. This way, it sort of disrupts them saying, "Who is using my whole name?" Like no one does that. So this is how I sort of like break into, hey, George Bush, how you doing? As in, look, man, we're all one sort of kind of thing. And it always works. It doesn't matter who you talk to. So that's one way to look at it. So I'm not intimidated. Now, I walked up to George Clinton. Actually, I wish I did meet George Clinton. Actually, it was Bill Clinton. And Bill Clinton, you felt him come into the room and my back was turned. Like, I didn't even know it was like, okay, someone's here. And you turn around, there he was. That guy was amazing. Mm-hmm. That was a bit intimidating. Someone like that, I don't know. He just had something like way over, like he was supernatural or something. It was really weird. But if I look at someone outside of my range, I guess you could say from people that I have easy access to, it's hard to say. But I would think that what I'm tapping into recently is a lot of people. I'm sort of feeling my way in through the baby bathwater scene. Yep. There's a lot of people in there. There's a lot of people in there that are low key, and I enjoy that. I'm definitely not low key. I'm on stage. I'm on video and stuff like that. But these guys like Jamie Waring or not Waring, Jamie
Wheel
guy.
Yep.
Jamie Wheel. He's like this silent sort of oak tree that just is huge and just stands there and has his presence. That's someone that I like to get to know more of. Someone like Jamie, because I think he's tapped into something that's the future. When it comes to performance sort of thinking, I guess you could call it high performance thinking, high performance human beings. I'd love to hear more about that. I know he's on a different wavelength than me right now. Other than that, like I said, I can reach anybody. I'm trying to get a hold of Joe Rogan right now. Actually, I just started yesterday. I want to get a hold of Joe Rogan because I think that my ayahuasca and San Pedro experiences will align with his sort of thoughts. And I think it would be a great show to be on. And look, there's sometimes some things you do for personal development, career development. And for instance, Joe Rogan is both, right? Personal development and career development. And for instance, Grant Cardone, who's an American. I don't know if you know who Grant Cardone is. He's an American multimillionaire. Yeah, he has a podcast as well. Probably going to land on that in November if all goes well. That's professional development, definitely right there. So it's always these. When you're moving forward, you want to do both investment in relational capital and for your business. So I can't really say this person 100%. I think Jamie's one of the ones that I'd really like to get because no one really impresses me. Like I don't go, oh man, that guy's amazing. I go, well, of course he is. Or that woman, of course she's amazing because she's a freaking human being, right?
That's right.
She's a spiritual being. It's like everyone has the ability to be amazing and everyone is amazing in one way or the other. So when someone comes up to me and says, oh my God, look at this person, I'm like, of course. And they can do much more. It's like, so for me, it's always about that presence, I guess. And Jamie had that.
Most definitely. I think like that thought of when I mention frothers and stuff, I'm always talking that anyone can be a frother. Like it doesn't matter who they are. There's no like grade because as you say, we're all human beings. We've all got the power within. And yeah, Jamie, I think I told you it took me 3 days to get the balls to go and chat to the guy. Just because, as you say, he's kind of like on this other level. And I was a little bit intimidated in terms of being able to match it with dialogue. Because he's pretty flawless.
and that's it, isn't it? He's like, he only says what needs to be said. So you feel like sometimes you're like a teenage girl just blabbering away, right? Like blah, 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 blah. He's like, bum, bum, bum.
Yep,
bum, bum,
correct.
Bum. Yeah, it's crazy. He's like a precision. He's like a sniper.
Yeah, that's a good, a
verbal sniper.
That's right. Yeah. That's such a great way to describe him. Brilliant. I'm going to get him on this as well. I'm going to get him on here.
Awesome.
So one question I like to tap on is talk about people who've passed away within your life or potentially celebrities and things like that we still can draw inspiration from. Is there any people who've passed away that you still draw that inspiration from?
Yeah, my grandfather, Stanley Merle Kuhn, he was a crazy guy. When we found, he left society sometime, I don't know, in the 80s, went up to the mountains and was living in a cabin, had hair down to his waist and a beard down to his waist and, hunting and living off the land. And then he sort of got sick and we had to bring him back and they shaved everything off. And he was like, I guess 80 and he looked like he was 50. I mean, this guy looked amazing. Wow. And, unfortunately he died, but this guy, my grandfather was was talking about things that are going on now, back in the 80s, about what was going to happen in the world. And, I was just always listening to him. And the thing about him that made everything special was his voice. Like, I don't know what it was, but the voice sort of had a vibration to it where it would mesmerize you, and his stories would just take you away. And it's just, that's a guy that he's so wise. I think grandfathers are all wise. I don't know. And he's just someone who just took me away. Another one who I really take a lot of inspiration from, and almost guilt inspiration, is my buddy, young M. Dillon, who died in my arms in Iraq when I was in the war. And he was a guy who I had met, and he was a Korean guy, so he's very family oriented. And not that all Koreans are, but they are more than Westerners. And we used to have these great conversations in the chow line when we're waiting in the desert to get some food, which was usually just canned food. And we just had these great conversations about what we're going to do when we get back. And, because people forget that when I went to Iraq the first time, I went in 1990, 1991, they expected 100,000 casualties on the American side. So everyone said there's 5 tanks of Iraq to every 1 tank that we have. So the first line is going to die. And I was in the first line, so we wrote our wills. We packed everything, and I gave everything away, and I went to war knowing that I wasn't coming back. So when we were there, we're like, you know what, we're going back. We're going to win this thing. And we started talking and stuff. And then the next thing I know, he gets hit. I go up front to his track where he got hit, and then hold him there, and he died. And since that day, I sort of live a little bit for him. When times get tough, I think about that, and I say, man, he wouldn't want this. He wouldn't want me to sit here and feel sorry for myself. So I pull strength in him. There's another weird situation where I pull strength, and I'll go through real quick. And that's also in Iraq. I was standing at a checkpoint after the ceasefire, and this little girl was coming, and she had her arms out to her sides like she was playing airplane, and there was a woman with her, and they came up, and she was wearing this pink dress, and I'm like, middle of the desert, this is weird, outside of Basra, which is where there was war going on still, and she was burnt from head to toe, and they had put this dress on her, I guess, to cover her up, because she was completely, her clothes from before burnt into her skin. I'm sorry to get so detailed here. And so I didn't know what to do, so I brought her to the medics, and I'm sitting there waiting, and when she came out, we weren't allowed to keep them at the checkpoint. We had to send them back into the desert by themselves. And I was like, man, this is horrible. This poor little girl, like 8 years old. And yeah, so I pulled butterscotch candy out of my grenade pocket. My aunt would send me these butterscotch. And I gave this little girl who's burnt and probably lost everything in the middle of the desert a butterscotch candy. And she smiled, right? And I was like, holy shit, man. I have no reason ever to complain about anything ever again. So I think about her when I sit here and start being pissed off about because whatever, the bill didn't work out, or I didn't get this contract, or whatever. I don't even think about that anymore. It's like, no, not happening, So yeah, I think about her too. I wish I could meet her. She was like 8 years old. She's probably, I don't know, 35, 40 right now.
Mate,
anyway, sorry. I didn't mean to break off into that. But
mate, that's so powerful. Thanks so much for sharing. I think adversity fuels a lot of people, the most powerful people in the world, who achieve the most. And there's certainly stories. And your grandfather as well, like super influential in your life. Yeah, lovely to hear that. And thanks so much for sharing.
Sure.
I guess your optimism is something that's very, very powerful as well. And I'd really like to ask you, what is something in particular that you're frothing on about the future of the world from where we are now?
A shift in vibration where the hate that we're breeding between each other, liberals and conservatives mostly, and I'm not saying the small fractions. I'm talking, split it in the middle, all the way to the right, all the way to the left, both sides. There's some kind of conflict between us all, and it's all artificial. Mm-hmm. When people realize that these arguments are just artificial and they're put in front of us. Look, every person is the king of their own being or queen of their own being. So when we know that our thoughts are something that we control, then suddenly all this stuff on the outside has absolutely no meaning. Because I choose how I react to the outside influences. I choose it. No one can make me do anything unless I let them make me. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So if I'm hoping that this revolution of, hey man, what is this? This is a waste of time. It's diverting me from reality. It's diverting me from creating an amazing, abundant life for myself. Why am I worrying about this stuff? This is just people being unhappy because this is what, I guess people are pitting us against each other. And I have hope, and maybe it's fruitless because our world is really messed up right now. That people are going to start waking up, and I see it. Baby bathwater is an example. There's a lot of people there that are on a different level. There's people in my circle of friends that sort of have drawn away from typical society and moved into another sort of group of people where we work on things that are probably more metaphysical than worldly, I guess you could say. Yeah. So, my hope is that we quit messing up our world. Look, this is all we got, man, and honestly, what are we going to live? Maybe 80 years, 100 years. You want to waste that time arguing about some stupid issue that has no meaning on history at all? Does it? I don't.
Agree. Yeah, totally agree, mate. Yeah. This concept of waking up is huge. And yeah, I've seen a few of your adventures that you've gone on in the past, and that's been a huge point in your life to get you where you are today. And yeah, super inspirational. I'm definitely keen to explore many of the same things. If you could create a workshop, I love workshopping. I know you like the instant feedback as well, because that's how you iterate and you create better programming and better connections. If you could create one workshop, what would the title be and what would the concept be? So one workshop that is culminating like the best that you could possibly give.
Wow, that's a lot. I think it would definitely have to do with plant medicine. The title would probably be something like the true potential in you, unleashing the true potential in you. I don't know, something like that, because it's just once you're talking about Peru. When I went to Peru and I do the ayahuasca in San Pedro and stuff. And what that does is when you go in to do ayahuasca, a lot of people do it for recreation. I do it because it helps me dictate my reality. When we believe in something, like for instance, Benny, I want to go visit you in Australia. I believe I can do this, right? I believe I can afford to fly to see you in Australia. But when it's certain that I can fly there, it will happen. I don't have to believe anymore because it's past that. It's just certainty. And what ayahuasca San Pedro does, when you go in with an intention and you work on yourself while you're working with the medicine, you turn all of your wishes and your dreams and your thoughts and your wants and your beliefs into certainty. And then suddenly they're not in your mind anymore because they absolutely are. And if I can bring this to, and I'm doing it again in May, actually, May 2nd to the 12th, 3rd to the 13th, another group of people, we're going to Peru, and we're going to do exactly that. I brought 2 people this time just to test it. And I barely touched them as far as guidance, just let them go on their way, just gave some tips and stuff. And their lives are completely different, completely high-end performance, productive. It's incredible with ease, with total ease. And so that's what I want to do. Because I think, we are scared of plant medicine. People, oh, it's drugs. It's not. They've been using it for 1,000 years on the Amazon, and this is what they do to expand their consciousness. And we all know we only use, a minuscule part of our brain. And this opens it up and allows you to sort of actually bypass the doubt in your human mind and get it into the subconscious where it becomes automatic. It's amazing.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, yeah. Back to Jamie Wheeler, his work, "Seek Your Peaks," is one of his quotes, and it's all about the fact that we can find this awakening through those plant medicine avenues, or potentially through meditation and a bunch of other things.
Well, it's all mixed. It's all mixed together. Like I've been doing it for 10 years, and it's a process. So the first time I did it, like, okay, what's going to happen? And then I realized you actually have to go in with an intention, and you have a plan. Like you're programming yourself, and this is basically what you're doing. So you work with the plant medicine, you program yourself, and you come out the other side, and you don't have to think about it because you're programmed. That's the key part about it. People think, oh, I have to do an affirmation every day. And what I do here with my affirmations and with my intentions every day is there's sort of like just support, where I feel a little bit, okay, this is not going. Let me support it, because we have to do the work too. It doesn't just happen out of nowhere. So, give me the strength to find the right, sort of door to go through to make this happen. That kind of stuff.
Brilliant. Yeah, mate. Maybe I'll have to come with you. That sounds like a worthy trip. My flatmate just got back from Peru doing the same thing, and he's well and truly shifted. He's someone you love to meet as well. So, mate, you're actually really tough for this next part of my podcast, and as we wrap it up. But I want to connect more frothers with frothers. And I was trying to think, who can I connect you with? Seeing you've got so many gnarly connections already. But I was actually on this like plant medicine sort of vibe, and I was thinking about someone who's actually from where I grew up, and he's an activist.
and he spends a lot of time in the bush. So he's actually harder to get the phone, that phone call you talk about. And his name's Jake Cassar. And I met him for the first time in February this year, sitting around a campfire, and he was teaching us about bush medicine and telling us essentially how he saved the rainforest and the bush from the mining companies where I live. So when he was doing that, if he hadn't have done it, I wouldn't have been able to have the upbringing I had and the nature and the animals and whatnot. And I just feel like, man, you guys would be such an awesome connection. And if you come out to Australia, like you just said, I'd love to connect you. I'd love to connect you via a Skype or a Zoom, but also to meet in person, and we go out and do a couple-day trek or whatever through the Aussie bush and check out plant medicines. He's got some interesting teas as well, Indigenous teas.
I bet.
Yeah, and mate, I like yourself, I'm loving learning from you, but also learning from him as well. Super inspirational.
Awesome. I'd love to meet him. It'd be great. It'd be an honor to meet him. Yeah, definitely. Awesome. It's funny you say that about saving the rainforest, because the company that Olivia Newton-John and John, her husband, had, John Easterling, they called him Amazon John, because he lived in the Amazon. He worked in the Amazon for 20 years looking for jewels and gold and things, until he had this experience where a hawk flew up and sort of nipped him on the head at the top of a mountain, and it turned him into a spiritual being. And they actually had a company that exported herbs that were sustainably harvested and grown by the Shipibo Indians and in the Amazon. And with all of the exports and all the sales that we made all over the world, 10% went back to the Shipibo so they could buy their land. So for the first time in history, an Indian tribe in the Amazon actually owns their land, outright lawfully, so that the logging companies can't cut it down. No one can go in, nothing. And that was why that company was so powerful for me. It was a no-brainer. It was like, I'm doing this. This is what I'm doing. This is my mission. Unfortunately, it got bought out by this huge multinational, and they basically killed it. They're doing non-sustainably harvesting. They're just, knocking it out, just killing it. So whatever. But they still own their land, which is awesome.
Mate,
so that was like
so
a huge. Yeah. So it's like sort of got that parallel with him, with Jake. So saving the rainforest.
Beautiful. Yeah, mate, that's so good. Yeah, and you can, and those projects, when they come up, you just go, doesn't matter, I've got to work on this, and that's the same vibe I have. That's amazing, mate. So if people want to get in contact with you, follow you like I do, what's the best way to contact you?
Facebook is the best way. It's Stephen Kuhn Official. I'm sure it'll be in the show notes. It's Facebook, Stephen Kuhn Official. My website is stephen-kuhn.com. I'm all over. It's always Stephen Kuhn or Stephen E. Kuhn. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. That's about it. So those are the three big ones. My podcast just came out yesterday. Actually, it started yesterday. Your episode 4 coming out, I think, next week or the week after.
Awesome.
So looking forward to that. Yeah, looking forward to that. I don't know. I'm just getting ramped up. As you know, I got picked up by an agency in the States that is very big, and they're trying to make me into this media personality, sort of spread my word a little bit. But it's difficult because, you have your values and you have the things that you believe in. And then you have this media company that's sort of very professional in a way that sometimes maybe you think, okay, that maybe isn't me kind of thing. So it's a learning process as well to try to not, get sucked into that sort of media temptation and still stay who I am, which I'm doing pretty well so far.
Mate, I reckon you'll have no trouble with that because you're obviously that you live by the authenticity vibe. So, and you're an absolute frother, mate. Thanks so much for being on the Finding the Frothers podcast.
My pleasure, man. My pleasure. Froth on, brother.
Froth on, yeah, mate. And I noticed you posted something the other day with frothing in your post. So
I did.
It's like making its way around the world.
It's taken off. Yeah, I did.
Not that I invented.
Did I tag you? Did I tag you in that or something? Yeah, I did.
Yeah. Awesome, mate. All right. Well, thanks a lot, dude, and have like an awesome day. I know it's a bit earlier there, and stay radical.
All right, man. You too. Thanks a lot, buddy.
Quick one, guys. To keep this show afloat, feel free to subscribe and share the love. Maybe even leave a cheeky comment review. That'd be awesome. You can find the show notes on my website at bennywallington.com. And finally, this episode was sponsored by my grandma, Joyce Reichel, who passed away last year from dementia. She was one of the original frothers and would talk to anyone on the bus, train, or wherever and generously impart her energy and wisdom. So if you see an elderly person who is looking for someone to froth with, go and hang out with them. They've got the best stories.
Also, a huge shout out to our producer, Lily Haynes, for bringing this to life, and Billy Otto, who created that beautiful introduction in true Billy Otto style. Also, my buddies in Australia and the UK who have been super generous in swinging me feedback. In a way, all of you guys are sponsoring me with your time. Love to the guests, past and future, and also to you guys for listening. Ciao for now. You!